Hello there, my name is Nick Whitehouse and you are listening to Solihull Radio. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Derek and Marion from Talking Newspapers this afternoon. Let's just find out who we are, who we've got in the studio. First of all, Marion, could you just tell us what's your role with Talking Newspapers?
At the moment I'm the chairman and have been for the last 5 years, although the role was only supposed to be for 2. But
so you've held on, you're still in post.
But it's very enjoyable. Yes.
That's fantastic. And Derek, may I ask what your role is with Talking Newspapers?
Nick. I'm the information officer for Solihull Talking Newspapers, and as such, I'm the one that's supposed to know what's going on and who's doing it.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about it, because until I got talking to Brad Parks from Specsavers, it was an organisation I'd never ever heard about before. So tell us about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's most probably in the late 60s that a librarian from Wales happened to be visiting Sweden. And there they had a library with a local association for the blind. He picked up this idea that they were actually talking to the blind, giving them some of the news, and brought it back. When he returned from his holiday, he returned to Aberystwyth, where he was on the staff of the College of Librarianship in Wales, and he talked very enthusiastically, and as such he recruited a lot of enthusiasm from the Round Table and other businesses who were able to help him take the business forward, take the concept forward.
So what is that concept? That's recording of the news for blind listeners, I guess.
That's right, and those who have limited vision as well. So the idea is that, and when I talk to some of our own customers, they are very grateful to receive a talking newspaper, insofar that up to then they have been dependent on family or friends to read them the news over the week. And that, of course, is very difficult if one's wife is reading your partner is reading the news, and they've got shopping to do, they've got gardening to do, and all the rest of it. Here we have an independent facility. They can turn the news on or off whenever they wish.
So that's very much. It is quite literally on demand, isn't it? That's wonderful. How many people, with either nationally or locally, are using the Talking Newspapers service?
In
Solihull we have about 250 listeners.
Okay.
And each one has been visited by a member of our team. And we explain what it's all about. It's a free service. They don't have to pay anything at all towards it. And we record the local news.
Okay, so that's the news from the Solihull area
that covers the borough.
And so how are you funded? I guess if you're not charging for this service, how is that through donations, or is it?
It is. It's through donations, or people have in the past very kindly remembered us when they're writing their will, and left us small amounts and large amounts. But people are very kind with their donations. Local groups, WI groups, for instance, and other local small charities raise money and give it to us. And we depend entirely on donation.
Okay, and so has your listenership, has that remained static over time, or has it grown, or do people stay with you? How has it changed over time?
It's changed in levels. We had a high membership, and then it fell away, and we went down to just 100 listeners, but over the last 4 or 5 years we've increased it now to about 250. And we're also trying to attract new volunteers, because some of our volunteers have been with us for about 30 years, which is a long time, almost since it began in Solihull. And so we're looking for new readers, people behind the scenes as well, because I find that a lot of people just want to read, which is understandable, but other jobs have to be done. We have to deal with the post, so we get these news out to the listener, and we need technical people who can look after the sound systems and help put it right if it goes wrong. So we're looking for background people as well as people up in the front.
It's much like if you're in an amateur dramatics company, or if you're on Solihull Radio. There's lots of people who want to do the performing bit, and they forget the fact that there's an army of people who make everything else happen.
Yeah.
and they're the most vital link in the chain.
Yes, almost certainly.
And without them, it would all fall apart.
Yes, yes. It's true.
So what's your individual backgrounds in talking newspapers? How did you get involved?
Nick, it was most probably the early start of the millennium, and I was still working. I'm retired now.
Okay.
But I was still working, but found that I did not have the time that was required to do the talking newspaper bit. I could not give my full attention to it. So it wasn't until 2009, 2010 that I was able to actually then give sorry, I'm laughing.
There's been some directing going on there. There was a hand gesture. We won't mention which one.
So to get enough time to actually make it work. Yes.
Yeah. So is this? How did you sort of get involved then? You just sort of got a calling.
There was a piece in the newspaper, a very short piece, that just said needed some readers. And I thought, yes, I could do that. So I applied and found out exactly what it was all about. That's when I decided I couldn't give it my full 100%. But by 2009, 2010, that was when I got involved. And I'm now one of those that do the recording as opposed to the speaking, which might tell you something. Yeah, so I'm a recordist. And I also, as Marion was saying, we have a small number of people that distribute the facility to actually enable people to hear and to receive the news on a regular basis. I should also say we talk about the news, but we also provide a magazine which comes out once every quarter, which contains stories, poetry, other things that people say or our listeners want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's done by a totally different team. I say totally different. Mary's involved with that as well, but generally it's a totally different team.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Marion, how did you get involved?
Well, my background is always talking. I've always been very fond of talking, reading. I was a Toastmaster in my working life, and then I was into public speaking, and when I wanted to close down on the Toastmastering and finish that, I decided that I wanted to still use my voice. And I happened to know someone who was a member of a team at that time, who's now retired, but I spoke to him and he said, well, come along, and that was it. I came along, and within 12 months I was on the committee, and another 12 months I was chairman.
Do any of you have a sort of a personal link with anyone who's blind who might be using your service, or was it just sort of a fate that sort of brought you into talking newspapers?
Well, as far as I was concerned, I didn't really know anything about talking newspaper. I came into it for my own benefit, but having been involved now and got to know so many of our listeners and their stories and their all about them, I'm really dedicated now to providing this service, because it's a very lonely life, you know, sometimes, and people who live alone, who have got impaired vision, it can be very lonely. And I'm very conscious of this, and I do believe that through talking newspapers we can provide that human link. It's a very personal thing. I mean, we always give out our own names. We wish them happy birthday at the time of their birthdays. So we always try to keep them involved. We chat about the weather before we start reading the news, and so it's we try to make it as friendly as possible. I
suppose they talk about very similar to radio, I guess, in the sense that you become a friend in their living room. And
that's right.
And I guess that is very similar for yourselves.
So that's what we try to be. That's our aim, yes.
So I guess that leads very, very, very easily on to the next point, which is how on earth do they listen? How do they... What's the system? How does it work?
The system...
Or is that like a magician explaining their tricks?
Nothing is secret. No, basically we record a weekly newspaper. Now we have a producer for each team. There's 4 teams. Each team consists of a producer, 4 readers, and a sound engineer. And on that basis, each week a different team. There's 4 teams, so A, B, C, D. They take it in turns to actually do the recording. We also have another series of 4 teams that actually are responsible for the distribution. So at the end on a Friday night, which is when we record the newspaper, that is put onto a master stick and left for the team to come in very early on Saturday morning to distribute that recording onto any number of sticks, USB sticks.
Yeah.
They are then packaged up and taken to the post office, and we actually have I was talking about the history of talking newspapers. It was not long ago in the 70s that talking newspapers gained recognition by the head postmaster in order to use the first class free post facility for articles for the blind convention. So we actually send out these articles free of charge. They're posted free of charge, and they also have a return free of charge in a very substantial envelope, which can be used time and time again. Once they have received this envelope, it's a yellow envelope, they use a machine that we will have distributed and trained them how to use, and they put this USB stick into the box, turn on, and it has a facility that if they're not interested, for example, in all the news that we may have recorded, then they can push a button and it goes on to the next track.
So that skips onto the next thing,
Yes.
item that's
So
interesting to them.
If it's a political, an example would be if it's a political item and this person's not interested in politics, he just presses the button and it moves on. Alternatively, of course, if the person goes to sleep, as a lot of our people do, and that's me included, you can actually go backtrack and re-listen to the article that we should have been listening to.
Well, I guess there's always that time that you miss that important piece of information or the phone number or
Yes,
whatever it might be
telephone
that
numbers,
you
yes.
might need. You need to go back and you need to listen to it again.
Yes.
Do you ever get sort of people of significance who come and make a contribution themselves or anything like that?
Yes, yes, we do. The magazine in particular, Pam, the editor of that, she approaches people and asks them to come in to either be interviewed or just to give us their life story or what they do with their daily life. And we've had in the local police, the local fire people, councillors have been in. The mayor comes in every Christmas time and gives a Christmas message. So yes, we try to always involve local news and local people.
Yeah.
And and people are very good. Again, you know, the mayor every year they say, "I didn't know anything about you," you know.
Yeah.
And people don't, and we do want them to spread the word, because if you're visually impaired, you can't sit and watch television. You may listen to the radio. Otherwise, you're just sitting there. You can't read. You can't watch television, and so you depend upon your ears and
There's
something
that
of interest.
reliance there.
Yes.
Well, I hope that with a sort of an ongoing relationship with Solihull Radio, we can raise that awareness if possible.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, I hope
Yes.
so
Good.
too.
That'd be good.
But if people want to find out more or get involved or actually start using your service, how would that be possible? How would you do that?
In the first instance, I would suggest we head to the website of Solihull Borough Talking Newspaper, where all the details are there as to our history and how they may actually contact us. And indeed, there is a link there to the National Talking Newspaper Facility, which, if they're going to move, something like that, they may want to go to, say, the Birmingham Talking Newspaper, heaven forbid.
Do you have a relationship with them? Do you never really talk to each other? Or
Rarely.
Never, rarely. All right. There's a rivalry there. I'm not
Yes.
touching that button.
No, don't.
No, it's just one of those things, you know. With heads down, you do your bit and try to produce the best article for your customers.
Of course. So what have you got the URL there that they could go to if they wanted to find that, or did they just Google the link, or what do they do?
I'm
Live broadcasting.
Yes.
I'm just trying to think. It's
Well, can I fill in there whilst
Yeah.
you're saying? If you want to speak to someone on the telephone,
Yeah.
then please do ring me.
Okay,
And shall I give you my telephone number now?
go for it.
01564 773984. and it's Marion.
Okay, and they could talk to you about all things talking newspapers, how to get involved, if they
How
want
to
to
get involved.
if they want to read, or particularly back sort of behind the scenes.
Yes.
But also if they wanted to start using your service as well.
Yes, or if they have a member of the family
Yeah.
that they think, be young or old, if they're visually impaired and they just want something that's different,
Yeah.
then contact us, please.
Thank you, Marion. Any luck with that web address?
I think you could put in actually
Yeah.
www.sbtna.weebly.com. Weebly, W-E-E-B-L-Y, which is where our information is contained, the server. Alternatively, if you just type in Talking Newspaper, you'll come up with the national site, and
Yeah.
there will be a link there.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Marion. Thank you very much, Derek. It's been a pleasure talking, and I'll catch you again soon. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Nick.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Goodbye.